recording, and we
Yeah.
are. We are live. Hey everybody, welcome to the inaugural podcast of two lekker guys on opposite sides of the planet. My name is Daryl Keith Hendon. I currently reside in beautiful Denton, Texas, USA, and I have a rugby channel that I've been with for a while, and I have met a man all the way in Joburg, East Rand, all the way on the other side of the world there in Mr. Pierre Visser. Why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi there, guys. Welcome to our first ever podcast. We're so happy to have you guys here. As Keith rightfully mentioned, I also have a channel on YouTube, also mostly covering the rugby at the moment. But of course, I'm really looking at the whole of South African culture. And of course, I've met Keith online. And we thought, hey, we actually got a couple of things that we've got in common, and it would be great if we actually started a podcast and really just suss out all the things that we find interesting about both our countries and similarities involved, and of course also the differences. So maybe we can learn from each other and grow from there.
Yes, already starting it off with a word that I wish people would use here, sussed up. Nobody uses that here in America, but it is a great word that's used. I thought it was just kind of predominantly Kiwis, but no, Kiwis, Aussies, and Safa boys all use the word sussed up. It means to kind of get everything squared away, I guess. People here really don't say that too much. But yeah, man, it's kind of an interesting time of year, obviously, with the World Cup coming up. But I think a lot of people are like, hey, what outside of that are you guys kind of? And it was like, the big thing was like, he's a metalhead, he's a rocker, which everybody, you can look at me and tell that that's what I'm into. He's just as heavily, if not more, tattooed than me. But that was kind of the thing, is like everybody, yeah, he's showing his sleeve out there. But I think everybody, it's like rugby is kind of a worldwide thing, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, there's heaps of rugby fans, but there's not really, you can't sit and say, oh yeah, there's heaps of rugby fans that are also into heavy music at the same time. But I also
Yeah.
think it's a little different also, because where we both grew up, like, I guess the access to that type of music was probably like completely opposite for the both of us, because I grew up in North America where you had metal and punk shows 4 or 5 nights a week, every week, all year growing up. And it's not really as common in South Africa, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a metal scene in South Africa anywhere? Like, is there a metal
Yeah.
scene there?
Look, in the current state of things, when I moved to the East Rand, there's not a lot of places anymore for that metal scene. But there was, when I was growing up, there was places like Zeppelin's, which was a nightclub in Pretoria, which was purely only metal music being played all days of the week. And we generally, we used to go there quite a lot. And guys like your Fok of Polisikar, which I'm sure you've heard of before, when you came this side, they actually performed there a few times as well. And there was also a place called Nile Crocodile back in the day. I don't know if it still exists, to be honest, but I know Zeppelin's has closed down. But Nile Crocodile also had quite a couple of metalheads hanging out there. So we had bands like Cutting Jade back in the day that used to perform there. Sarin Gas, of course, performed there. I don't know. A lot of people probably know Sarin Gas now as Cedar because, of course, there was a bit of a controversy with their name when they moved to the US. So, excuse me. So there was quite a bit of a scene back in the day. There was also a radio station where I grew up in Pretoria called Tux FM, which was 107.2 FM back in the day. And that was really a university radio channel, but it played only metal music, like rock music, metal music. That's all it played all day long. And I really grew up with that type of scene. So, but when you see the average South African, Not a lot of metalheads, eh? Not at all.
It's kind of funny living here in America, obviously, and having traveled pretty extensively. You do realize, like, as far as the music goes, obviously we have a lot of big stuff that comes out of here, but surprisingly, at least in South Africa, the main acts that I saw that were kind of popular there, as well as being popular here, were obviously the pop artists, the hip hop pop artists, the top 40 stuff. But for me, surprisingly, country music was actually, like, American country music did really well there. And I guess that's that old Boer mentality, that farmer country kind of mentality that gets it. But I will say this: in all my travels, it's kind of interesting. Not the biggest new rap or hip hop. I'm more like the 80s and early 90s guy, but like the number 2 country as far as consumption of rap and hip hop music. What country do you think it is, Pierre? Like, what is the number 2 consumer in the world?
Number 2 consumer.
Obviously, number 1 is America. Obviously,
yeah, 100%. I know Germany is a lot of rock and metal. Right?
No, Germany is number 2. Germany is the number 2 consumer of rap and hip hop music in the world. They even have their own rap and hip hop scene. It's pretty crazy. But like, when it comes to metal music, like for all my travels, like I said, Christchurch, New Zealand has a massive metal scene in Christchurch. Obviously, Melbourne, Australia has everything, but you know, including a bunch of Aussies hand rolling ciggies in the wind. It's people like, hey, describe Melbourne. Melbourne is like Austin, Texas. It's like, it's a bunch of dudes that roll their own cigarettes, drink craft beer and coffee, and just like smell like patchouli. It's just hipster central for Australia. And then you get to some place like South Africa, where obviously people, I don't think the world really kind of really gets the diversity in the country. I mean, they call it the Rainbow Nation, and I mean, if you've never been there, it literally is a rainbow nation. Like, it's
100%.
Every color, creed, everything is there, and it's
this is the thing, right? So just to I'll come full circle just now, but just to touch on your music side, the South African people, especially the Afrikaner people, right? They like saki, right? I don't know if you know what saki is, but really it's dancing, right? So it's our version of dancing, and we enjoy all variants of dancing. So really, that's where I think the country really is involved, because the guys like this type of dancing, not really techno or rave or anything to that effect, although there is quite a big scene for that as well. But when I'm speaking about that, I'm speaking specifically Afrikaans people. They tend to have a big love for dancing, right? So that type of music really fits in properly with that type of setup. So that's why I guess the Afrikaans music scene is also very big in South Africa. So even myself, I'm quite a big fan of Afrikaans music because, number one, I'm Afrikaans, if you couldn't tell by my accent. But also the second reason for that is it gives you a sense of pride, right? Like there's guys that, Bok van Blerk, for instance, the guy's name is, that guy, when he starts singing, I feel like I need to go get my oxen wagon, all right, and I'm about to go trek across the Drakensberg, you know what I mean? So it just makes me feel so much more South African, I guess, and proud in myself just by listening to that music. Though that being said, my majority of music is, of course, metal in itself. I probably say about 80% metal, probably about 15% hip hop, and about 5% Afrikaans. So. But when I say hip hop, I also enjoy the 90s and those type of guys, like Tupac and Biggie, and those type of guys. So
the classics.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think, like, you kind of go back to the metal thing, because we're both kind of from that aggressive. I kind of came out of it more from like the punk rock thing into like hardcore, into metal, like thrashy stuff. it's kind of one of those things too, that it's like kind of a cultural identity thing. I think if you're kind of an outcast and an underdog, you gravitate towards that music. And I think with Afrikaners, because there is so much pride, so much of, hold your chin up and stick your chest out and be proud. It's kind of hard for them to rally around something that's like very angry and aggressive, even though, there's very few ethnicities, nationalities that I want to piss off more than an Afrikaner, just because like when you piss off an Afrikaans person, you know it. Like it's immediate. Like it's
100%.
there's no like rising levels. It goes from like lekker to I'll tell you this, my friend. It's like okay, there's no like half. It's either all the way off or all the way on. And I think
100%.
with metal music, it's like there's varying degrees of it. And I think with Afrikaans people, they don't have a varying degree. You're either super pissed off or you just want to have a beer and a braai and chill. Like there's no in between. And I think that's kind of partially the reason why in some places metal music doesn't do as well, just because of cultural kind of things. And like, but then there's places like New Zealand, like Australia, like the United States, like Europe, where like you have these varying degrees of like being pissed off and upset.
Yeah.
In South Africa, I don't feel like you have the opportunity for that, because it's like, if it's not broken homes and drugs and gangs, it's load shedding, it's corruption. It's like, there's no middle ground. It feels like, especially in a country like that, where like things, as awesome as they are, and I think people around the world, you know, like, yes, there's crime and all that, but there's things even more so than that like are a little more subtle, I guess, on things. But I mean, like the load shedding thing, like people don't understand that. And it's like, this is what happens when you have mismanagement of services. Like, and it's not, and it's, okay, not to get too over political, but yes, it's what happens when you have one party that's controlled everything for 30 plus years and they've mismanaged everything. And I, you know, to kind of explain it to people outside of South Africa is a bit of a hard sell, just because they don't understand how things are. And it's when you meet people that are into metal music from a place like South Africa, they're die hard about it, because there's no halfway. There's no like, oh, I sort of like it a little bit. No, it's like you're either all the way or you listen to nothing but Kurt, Darren, and Snotcop. Like it's
look, at the end of the day, right? If you come to me with Nickelback, I'm gonna headbutt you in the face, probably, right? Because to me, they are the soft versions of metal. In my opinion, it's my humble opinion, and to be honest, a lot of South Africans do love a Nickelback, right?
So do Americans.
When you say metal to the guys here, generally they think either Nickelback or they think screaming. They don't think anything in between, right?
Yeah.
If you're not an actual metal fan in South Africa, you're probably in between those two, right? So, but for me, like Nickelback is like the corporate sellouts of metal, you know, type of thing, that they tried, but they just stopped before so that they can still get their stuff on radio, you know.
It's kind of interesting. So in America, Nickelback is lumped into a group of music that we call butt rock. Butt rock is like Nickelback, Stained, kind of any of that like alternative rock radio stuff. We call it butt rock.
Probably and live as well.
Creed is in that grouping as well. Although here's the funny thing, you can go through and listen to some of those bands' discographies, and there's some heavy stuff on it. It never gets played on the radio, but like personally, like I don't listen to Nickelback. Like that's not my I don't listen to Seether. Like that stuff's like pop radio to me. Radio has kind of died here. One thing I did want to bring up, you mentioned it, 107.2. In the US, we use odd numbers. So it's 107.1, 107.3, 107.5. We don't do 2, 4, 6, 8, 0. Like those are not broadcast stations. Now you can get an HD receiver and get stations in between them, and they're like usually. I know here locally, one of them plays like 1940s music all the time, which I like listening to because it just sounds like nothing I'm used to. But yeah, I mean, radio is kind of dead anyways. Like, especially here, it's really dead. I stream Spotify. That's pretty much it. If I listen to the radio, it's 1980s or 1990s stuff, just because that's when I grew up. But or if I'm with my missus, we listen to country when we drive around together.
Yeah, for sure.
She's from a small town, and honestly, I enjoy, like, especially since I'm living in Texas. I wouldn't like go out of my way, but like, yeah, I mean, it's relaxing music, especially when all you listen to is a lot of heavy stuff constantly. But it's kind of funny with like that whole kind of situation. And I know occasionally bands do make their way to South Africa. Like, I know Deftones has been there. Has Metallica ever played in South Africa?
I believe they have, yes. If memory serves, a couple of years ago. I think it was probably around about the 2010-ish mark, if I recall.
I'm
I think
willing
one
to
of my
bet
mates said that they went. So, but I didn't actually go to the shows back then. I was too poor to go to these type of things. So my mates did. But I mean, look, I mean, I enjoy country music myself as well on occasion. Like, look, for me, as long as it's an instrumental, I'm already gravitate towards it, because to me that's an art form, right? And I mean, guys like your Chris Stapleton, I mean, that guy, you cannot deny his voice and his ability to play the guitar, and it creates something in your soul that, for me anyways. So yeah, I can imagine country is listened to from now and then. I would.
It's it's kind of an interesting kind of dynamic, especially, like I said, I now live in Texas, which it's not, I don't live in the country by any means. There's 7 million people living in my metropolitan area, but when you do get out away from it all and it gets quiet for 5 seconds, that's what you do enjoy. You kind of go back to something we haven't talked about, and something I did want to bring up: record stores. Oh, there's that bird sound again.
Yeah, that silly bird is still flying around here, man.
But
record
stores, did you grow up?
Yeah.
Did you have like record stores everywhere growing up, or was that kind of a rare thing as well for you guys?
Not necessarily. We had music stores, not really like vinyl type record stores back in the day. It was music stores like Your Musica and those type of things. And yeah, they used to sell CDs and stuff like that. But for a number of years now, these guys have closed down. And so there's still a couple of stores that try and make themselves, survive by playing now like digital vinyl players and I don't know, these type of things. But really, the CD scene is dead, man. I don't know if anybody that really buys that anymore. Everything is streaming in South Africa. And I mean, I stream YouTube Music usually. I've got a premium membership with them. So, but I had a question for you, man. That's also something that we didn't discuss. But I, for one time in my life, I actually had something called IPTV, right? Now, IPTV has like thousands of TV channels that it streams. Okay, live TV channels. So of course we had hundreds upon hundreds of American TV channels playing. Okay, like from every state, from every town, almost. All the different channels were streaming here. So, but I had a question regarding that, because what is up with your guys' ads? I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, right? So I'm sitting here watching it, and it's like a 5 or 10 minute advert in between something, okay? And it's just advertising some form of medical scheme or something to that effect. And it's almost like fear of loss type selling that they're doing. You better call now. You're going to miss out. You better call now. Like 10 minutes long. And I'm like, what the hell? You guys are being brainwashed in this country. Like, they keep this thing on loop the whole time. What's going on?
So here's a couple of interesting facts. One is that there's only 2 countries in the world where you can advertise pharmaceutical products on the radio and TV. This is one of them. The other one, you wouldn't guess in a million years, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, is New Zealand. No other country in the world allows that.
Yeah.
The reason it is that way here is, like, there's no bones about it. The wealthiest country on the entire planet is the United States. I talk to a lot of people overseas, and obviously I've spent quite a bit of time overseas. And I think the thing that makes it here is that I have a very blue collar middle class job. I have an iPhone. I have a PlayStation. I bought a car brand new. Like, the things that are accessible to the upper class everywhere else are available to the middle class here. And the reason is because you're taught from a very young age growing up in this part of the world that I don't necessarily agree with this guy, the man I'm about to quote, but what he said was very much the truth. And the guy I'm going to quote is Marilyn Manson. Antichrist Superstar was a great record. Don't argue with me. I thought that album was awesome because it sounded like a Nine Inch Nails record. He was in a documentary called Bowling for Columbine, and he was like, the problem with America is as soon as you're old enough to understand, you have the acne commercial come on. The chick won't kiss you if you've got acne. She won't kiss you if you've got bad breath. Nobody's going to respect you unless you drive a $50,000 car. If you're a girl, dude, the war on women in this country and advertising is even worse. From the second they're old enough to understand, they're told that they're overweight and they're not attractive.
Yeah.
It's the monetization of that fear that, oh man, if I don't have clear skin, I'm never going to get laid. If I don't have nice teeth, no one's going to want to be around me. And it's that monetization. It's fear. They say fear porn. Even our news is like that here. It's fear porn. It's constant fear porn. It's like, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. I don't even watch the news locally here because every time you turn it on, it's somebody got killed, somebody's dying, or you're about to die. And it's the magic of advertising here is that it's constantly, you either need to buy this, your life's not going to be complete if you don't buy it, or if you buy something else, you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, it's that constant. And with the pharmaceutical commercials, it's gotten worse. It used to be like, oh, do you have high blood pressure? Take this. Now it's like, oh, do you have high blood pressure? Take this, but beware that this is all the side effects.
Yeah.
And the reason
you have to take like 50 different tablets to work out the side effects of each other.
So the reason why it's gotten to be that way too is because the people that are in charge of pharmaceutical companies are getting paid. Like, they're supposed to regulate it, but they're getting paid. Like, okay, you vape. I do nicotine pouches. I used to smoke cigarettes for many, many years. Okay. Every other country you go to and you buy a pack of cigarettes, it'll have like a picture of a rotted lung or a fucked up eye or a flaccid whatever. You know what I mean? It shows what it does to you. In America, all you get is, oh, it might give you cancer, in small writing on the side of the pack. Well, the reason that is because the guy that's in charge of that is getting money from the tobacco company.
Yeah.
So they're not going to change that. It's the same thing with pharmaceuticals. We used to run everything through clinical trials. Well, now if you have enough money, you can just shove money at it and they'll run it through. Yeah. A gentleman who's currently running for the Republican Republican nomination here, because we have an election coming up, a guy by the name of Vivek Ramaswamy. He got rich because he found a company that had an Alzheimer's drug that did not pass clinical trials. So he took his mother, who was a doctor. They ran a 6th trial. She shoved it through. He made billions off of this drug that did not work. And then as soon as they found out it really didn't work, it tanked and he'd already pulled his money out.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like, that's the medical industry in this country. Like,
but it's not just the medical, man. It's even
everything.
when I watched it, it was like everything's going out of business. Like every fucking part that's being manufactured. So there's like only 10 left. You have to buy this now. Phone today. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. How can you afford, if you had 10 parts left, how can you even afford an advert? You know what I mean? It's like,
well,
like
it's
for real, you have 10 in front and you got like a warehouse of 1 million of these things at the back. Like, and you just keep pulling the 10 to the front. So I'm like, geez, it's just mental, the type of advertising that goes on in the US. It really is crazy.
It's because it's profits over what is right. And I mean, like, I am a very left-sided person about things, but there are things that even I see that are just kind of like, that's a bit messed up. Like, I mean, a big prime example is like, the thing about capitalism is great. I love capitalism. Is it perfect? No, but I don't think anything is perfect. And the thing that makes capitalism so great is businesses that succeed flourish and businesses that don't crumble. Well, in the last 20 years, we've talked about this already. Our government has decided businesses that didn't flourish deserve money. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. You don't, if you have a failing product, don't pump more money into it. That means nobody wants it. Let it die. That's the beauty of capitalism. It's replaced by something better. We have a store chain here called Walmart. Everybody in the world knows who Walmart is. They're one of the biggest companies. They were this juggernaut. No one's ever going to take down Walmart. They're everywhere. That's how you know if you live in a town in this country. If you have a Walmart, you live in a town. Like, that's kind of like the sign that you have enough people to survive.
You have arrived.
Yeah. So nobody ever thought anybody could take over Walmart. And then you had this online retailer that popped up kind of overnight, started out selling books. And now you have Amazon, which is now you're starting to see Walmart hurting because they can't compete with Amazon. And that's capitalism. That's how it works. You go where your money, you choose where your money goes. And it's kind of, that's what America is. It's consume, consume, consume. They made a movie back in the 80s called They Live. It was a hilarious kind of horror sci-fi movie. But yeah, that's America. You consume. You consume.
America actually reminds me of a movie called WALL-E.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we're all fat and we have to have robots do our jobs. Yeah, it's not quite that bad yet, but it's the problem. I mean, people like always want to know, like, how is America what it is? And it's like, I'm telling you, the reason is that you can be middle class here and live very, very well. That is the beauty about America, is that credit is very easy to get here. Like, I have like too many credit cards.
Well, that's how Dean and Sam Winchester managed to survive.
Was credit cards? Yes, Supernatural, the series. Yes. Let me tell you this, my friend, to sound like an Afrikaner. They filmed none of those shows in the places that they said. Like, they showed an episode that was in Plano, Texas, which is like 20-30 minutes drive from me, and the house had a basement. Let me tell you this. There are no basements here. There's no basements in Texas. The water table is too high.
I didn't expect everything to be true, though. I mean, how much of things are getting shot on location versus how many things are being shot in studio. So I would have imagined that there's a lot of that stuff that's actually in studio, made up, built for that purpose. But I actually enjoyed that show, to be honest. I will never be able to watch. I don't know if you've seen, there was a new Winchester that actually came out, series.
No way.
And I just can't watch it, to be honest. I can't bring myself. There's only Dean and Sam, you know. Jensen Ackles, that's the guy that made it for me, you know, that made the series so great for me. So I know it's a bit off topic there, but
two Texas boys. Two Texas boys. They're both from Texas. Both those actors are Texas boys. No, that show was actually filmed in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I don't
Yeah,
know. Did you see the second Deadpool movie?
I did. Yes.
The one with the little Kiwi actor Julian Denizen, where he's like
Yeah.
shoots flames and shit. So there's an episode of Supernatural that's shot at that exact same school he was in Deadpool 2. They used that exact same filming location.
Oh, for real?
On Supernatural. Yeah, I recognized it as soon as I saw the Supernatural episode. I'm like, hey, that's from Deadpool 2, and it's a school in Vancouver, so or in British Columbia, excuse me. But like, yeah, so that channel that you watch Supernatural on here is called the CW Network. The CW Network
CW, yeah,
has been notorious. It was called the WB for the longest time. For me, growing up as a child in the 90s, it had a horrible show. God, it was so bad, but I watched it because I was a teenager, and the show was called Dawson's Creek. It's so bad.
James van der Beek, or however you pronounce that guy.
He also lives in Texas now as well. He lives down by Austin. So yeah, it's
Varsity Blues, eh?
Yeah, another Texas-based movie. That's you bring up that Van der Beek name, and there was another show that was very popular as a teenager here called Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
So the lead on that show, the guy that played Zach Morris, is a guy named Mark Paul Gosselaar. What people don't realize about Mark Paul Gosselaar is Mark Paul Gosselaar can actually speak Dutch. His father is Dutch, his mother is Indonesian, and every interview they'll see with him, his people will always try to get him to speak Dutch because, you know, it's not a common language here. And they're like, how do you actually say your name? And he's like, Husler. They're just like, what? It's like, yes, it's Dutch. It's Husler. It's not Gosselaar. Or hater or lover. Charlize Theron.
Yeah, Charlize Theron. Come on.
It's
And
Theron here.
when you ask her what's your surname, she's like, I'm Charlize Theron, and I'm like, don't be a fucking poser, man. Be yourself. Be who you are. You are South African, okay? So don't go pretending like your surname has now changed. You are Tron. You're born in Benoni. You're flipping 3Ks this way, away from our house, okay? So come on. You're not kidding anyone.
It's hilarious.
I know this is like our first episode, but let me just get this out of the way.
Go ahead.
I've already told Keith before.
Go in.
There is not 44 people speaking Afrikaans in this fucking country, all right? I don't know where she came up with that statistic. It is not true, all right? There's 4.4 million Afrikaans people in this country, okay? So if you want to tell me 44 people are speaking Afrikaans, then I say to you, sir, that you are sorely mistaken.
And that's just Afrikaner people speaking it. That's not everybody in the Western Cape that speaks.
Yeah. So please, Charlize, keep yourself to yourself. You have no clue what's going on in South Africa. You've been so far removed. You've probably not been here in 20 years. All right. You know nothing what's going on here. You know what? I started to sound like Ricky Gervais when he started telling those people to not have a political speech because they all have less schooling than Greta Thunberg. I mean, come on, really, women? Keep yourself to yourself, please.
It's funny. For those that don't know, South Africa has 11 official languages. You hear a lot of them. I think it is the only national anthem. I think it's the record for most amount of languages in a national anthem, but
languages in the national anthem. Yeah.
So obviously, what would you say is the number one spoken language in South Africa? English probably would be one, I'd reckon.
I'd probably say, English is probably the number one language to converse between all cultures.
Yeah.
Whereas I would probably say Zulu being the next.
Really? Okay.
So you find a lot of these guys. I don't know if it's called Fanagalo or what. I know my uncle used to say he speaks Fanagalo, but it's really like a mixture of languages. So, you know, the guys can be from all different states and different denominations, but they tend to find a way to communicate with each other. And I think there's a lot of commonalities between the languages. So that being said, I would probably say Zulu. If I had to guesstimate it, I'm not 100% accurate. I mean, the guys can correct me if they want, but I'd probably say English, Zulu and Afrikaans being the most spoken languages in this country, because Afrikaans is, after all, a must-have language in school. You have to have it. Afrikaans, and of course English is also a must-have. And then generally, when you're growing up in primary school, based on where you're at, you generally have different languages as a third option. So generally, it's, say, for instance, if you're in Northwest, it's probably something like Tswana or something to that effect. If you're going to Springs, that side is probably Northern Sotho, or so all the different types of depends who's predominant, I guess, in that specific area from a culture perspective, which will then define the third language, I guess.
What do you think Siya Kolisi? What is his other? Siya Kolisi speaks English, obviously. What's his main language that he speaks?
God, man, if I had to tell you, I'd lie to you, man. I would guesstimate probably Zulu or Xhosa.
So I think it's Xhosa.
Yeah, because that's the two biggest cultures, I would say, from the African denomination. So those are probably the two biggest ones. So I would say it's one of the two. can't be more right than that, I guess.
Well, like you
don't actually know.
Yeah. You can. There's an interview that's been posted recently. It was a press conference where they had Dion Forty. What a good grown man he is. And Cheslin Colby speaking French to a French reporter, because obviously they've spent quite a bit of time playing in France. They're playing rugby. And like for me, like the first time I saw Damien Dialende, I'm like, what is that guy? Like, what is he? And then somebody was like, yeah, he's Portuguese. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, we have a guy here that played on the local rugby team named Bronson Tellis. Mark is his dad. They're Portuguese background. And I think people don't get that about South Africa either, is that, like, yeah, the Dutch came as far as Europeans came first, but, like, so has everyone else. During British rule, we got all the Indians that came over from British India. That's why there's a lot of Indian people in South Africa, and it's a mixed mash of cultures, and that's what I think.
Well, I don't know if you know that history though. In terms of the Indians being in South Africa. Well, this is hearsay. This is what I've been told. I haven't actually done proper research on it, so don't quote me. You might be wrong. But what I've heard was that back in the day, the people were sailing around the coast of the Cape Town, and they actually were looking for the Chinese people, right? Because the Chinese people were actually very cheap labor back in the day, right? So, so they wanted these guys to really come through, and they wanted to use the Chinese people for that. So, but when they landed, they thought this is China, and it wasn't. It was actually India. So they took a lot of those people and they brought them to South Africa for cheap labor. So a lot of the Indians you'll find around the KZN region, all right, and not American Indian, actual Indian from India, just for those guys that don't know what I'm referring to. So they were very much working on a lot of the sugarcane fields back in the day. So that's just the story I've heard from them. And but it was quite interesting when I heard that. I was like, oh, okay. Now I learned something new today. Yeah.
Do you want to know why they call them Indians here?
No,
why they call natives.
Yeah.
So Christopher Columbus was looking for India when he landed here. He was trying to find India to buy spices, so they called them Indians. It's funny you bring up the sugarcane fields, how you had the Indians and Chinese. So the Chinese built the railroad system here. We didn't use Asians for our sugarcane fields. You can go ahead and you already know what we used for our sugarcane farming here.
Yeah, of course.
We used people from the west of Africa. We brought them over as slaves, and that's that. And so that's why they call them Indians here. There's a really big, obviously, I live just south of Oklahoma, which is the largest concentration of indigenous peoples, Aboriginal Americans, these kind of Indians, basically. They call themselves Indians.
Weren't they originally like Eskimo people?
So that's so originally, yes. When the land bridge, that's how everybody got here. But like the Native Americans that you have here now, Oklahoma is the largest concentration of them. My best friend in the entire world is Pawnee, and I'll be completely honest with you. When I met him, I was working at a pizza shop in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and he's this long black-haired kid that came in, and I thought he was Mexican. I was like, okay, I need a Mexican cook. And I start talking to him, and I'm like, oh, what part of Mexico does your family come from? He's like, oh, no, we're from here. I'm like, well, before here. He's like, well, we're from Nebraska. I'm like, oh, did you work like the meat packing plants? And he's like, no, that's where my people are from. And I'm like, what do you mean your people are from? And he's like, I'm Pawnee, man. And I'm like, oh shit, I thought you were Mexican. Like, and it's funny because like growing up, you're kind of shown that they're shorter people. Jordan is like taller than me. And I'm like, why are you so tall? And he was like, well, because there were no lawnmowers. You had to be tall to see over the grass. And it was like, okay, that makes sense. But it's funny because it's like you don't really think about that. But like, yeah, there's been a really big kind of resurgence in the culture. It happens every 30 or 40 years in this country where people act like they really, really like care about the issues of indigenous people.
Yeah.
And it's all just kind of, the tribes, if it wasn't for the casinos in Oklahoma, they probably would, because we don't have casinos in Texas. So you have to go to Oklahoma if you want to go to a casino.
Yeah.
And it's sad what's happened to them. I mean, this used to be their land. And I mean, like, it's colonialization, which I think is kind of a hot button issue, especially with what you see going on in the north of Africa right now.
Look,
with all
man,
it
happens everywhere, man. This is the thing, right? Some of the most richest people came from Africa because Africans sold their own people, as slaves. Yeah. So especially when you go to North Africa. And there's a bit of a fact for you. I don't know if you knew this, but did you actually know that the African continent has been made smaller to fit the maps?
Yeah. Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So yeah. I know a lot of people don't know that when they think of Africa, they actually want to go and impose like the US map over Africa to show how they compare. Africa's massive, bro. Africa is fucking massive. And South Africa is at the bottom edge of said continent. And we are not Africa over here. We actually South Africa. We've got one of the biggest GDPs in Africa. We've got the most advanced railway system in Africa. We supply the world with probably 55% of gold. We actually supplying majority of the world with fruit. If you didn't know that, there's a bit of a fact for you. It's a lot of people think when they think Africa or South Africa, they think like this continent that's just arid bush and just animals,
lions running around crazy.
Yeah, I don't have a lion. I can promise you, I don't have a lion because that thing is a wild animal and it will fucking kill me. So I don't want it here. And I live in a city that's 6.2 million people. All right, and it's an actual city. It's not just a town. And it's no savannah in between, right? I know Johannesburg has got the biggest man-made jungle in trees, the most amount of trees planted in the city in the world. That's Joburg for you. But that's not a jungle. There's no animals there. Only the people robbing each other.
Or just, I think for a lot of people, they don't get like even just the diversity, not just in South Africa, as a continent. Like your neighboring countries, you've got a country next to you that speaks Portuguese. You've got a country that speaks Italian. You've got countries that speak French. You've got countries that have their own languages, Creole, etc. These kind of things. And it's like, people don't realize, like, and I mean, so this is kind of something that does a bit bother me because obviously, my ties to this, Republic of South Africa.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of get, especially as white South Africa, we're kind of the whipping post of the world when it comes to the continent. Like nobody else gets called out. Nobody calls out Belgium for what they did in the Congo. But you talk about a white South African, apartheid. And it's kind of bullshit, in my opinion, that like we're kind of the whipping post of the world when it comes to Africa. It's like, we're the ones that decided to stay. So now we get the ire of everyone else for deciding to stay. And it's like, it's
Can
really,
I tell you something,
it's
man?
sad. It's sad.
there was in the news, I kid you not, yesterday. You know about that fire you asked me about that
Yeah,
happened
in
in Joburg
Joburg.
CBD?
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, there's a few people that died there, probably 70 odd or 80 odd. I really don't follow the news much because, as you mentioned earlier, it's just a lot of people dying all the time and bad news, bad news. So, but yeah, there was this. I don't know if it was a minister or what in South Africa, but she was going on. This is what we get from apartheid. This is still long lasting effects from apartheid. And okay, so it's not mismanaging of billions and billions of dollars. All right, it's not municipalities that's not doing their jobs. It's not the power grid that's not working. It's not people creating tenders, then giving it to their friends so they can get kickbacks. It's none of the above. It's none of these things, right? It's still from 30, 40 years ago. It's from apartheid that let that city go into ruins. Okay, it's not the non-protection of our borders, having everybody illegal coming into our country and setting up shop in the middle of Joburg CBD, hiding away because we're not going in there to remove these people. All right. It's none of these things. It's still apartheid. This is what the lady said. It's still the after effects of apartheid. This fire that happened. Can you imagine? They would blame anything on apartheid these days.
Well, I mean, in the same respects, okay, I live in America where there is a school shooting, it seems like every week here.
Yeah.
And it is everything but the guns' fault. It's everything but access to guns' fault. It's bad mental health care. It's bad parenting. It's bad schools. It's not the access to guns. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
When in reality, that is the problem. I feel like I said, kind of getting back to the whole South Africa thing, it's like you don't hear about what the Belgians did. You don't hear about what the English did. You don't hear, like, people here, especially outside of South Africa, when you hear the word concentration camp, they automatically go to World War II, Hitler, the Nazis.
Yeah.
They don't know that no. 40 years before that, the English were using concentration camps on our people in South Africa. But you don't hear that. You don't hear that part of it. You
almost killed off our whole population with that concentration camp.
Yeah, but you don't hear that part of it. You don't hear that part of it. And what is our prize for this at the end of the day? Okay. The prize for it is that you get to be the whipping post for the entire world. Nobody talks about anything else that anybody did in Africa, what the French did, what the English did, what the Portuguese did, what everyone else. But white South Africans, you get to be the ire of every single one of those things. And it's like, look, you talk about colonialization, it happened everywhere. I think it's a bit different in South Africa because we came in, we didn't come in and kick everybody off. We found land that was unoccupied and said, this is our land, we're going to use it. It's not like we came in and kicked out the native populations. If we did that, there would be no Xhosa, there would be no Zulu, there would be none of these people left. These people all still exist in massive numbers, more than the white population.
Yeah. I always say, look, I mean, for me, that's a much deeper conversation. When I think, who really has rights to anything? This is the thing, right?
Yeah.
This is the question that one needs to ask yourself because, when you're going down that route, I mean, do you own your land? Let's say you buy a house. Do you own your land? No, you took it from another people. Okay, that other people, where did they get it? They also found it. It wasn't just like nobody was there that said, I don't own this piece of land, but here you go, that's yours. Nothing like that happened, man. You either had to take it by gunpoint or sword at whatever, depending what stage of history you're in, or stick. If you had the biggest stick, you're the one that got that piece of meat. So it goes so much further back, right? So it's, I always say history is written by those in power, okay? Because really it is, right? And this is the thing for me. So I mean, sure, even if we did come and take the land away, right? Even if we did, okay, we had the biggest stick, okay? That is in history how wars were fought and won, okay? And if you won, you were the winner. you got the prize. That's just how it worked, right? So I mean, it's look, I mean, I don't generally get into these type of topics, but it blows my mind, that people would say, well, you European, go back. I'm not. I was born here. I'm not going anywhere, right? I'm proud of this nation. I'm proud of my people. Okay, and unfortunately, we've been so far removed from those that come from Europe. Okay, that we've actually created our whole own culture. We've created our own type of way of thinking. So at the end of the day, we don't have we have more in common with the Africans that lived here before us than we have with the Europeans that were in Europe. So that's just my 2 cents worth. So for anybody to tell me that I need to leave this country, I think you're going to have a hard time convincing me of that, because I'm here to stay. I'm proud, and as an Afrikaner people, I don't know, I don't envision to speak for all of the Afrikaner people, but I speak for me and mine. We will prevail. We will prevail. We're proud people, as you mentioned, and that's what makes the Springbok so well as well in rugby. It's a type of people. It's a mindset. We never die. We never give up. We always keep on going on. We always take every punch that's thrown at us, and we keep coming. That's just the type of people that we are. We're very hardened people in on this African continent. So. Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to.
Go on and on. Pierre, man, I think that's a good spot to kind of end this first episode on. Is that we're not going anywhere. This podcast isn't going anywhere. This is fun. I actually enjoy this, and it's cool. We haven't even talked about rugby yet, and this is so guys, hopefully if this is any indication of how this is going to go, this is going to be a lot of fun. And I do agree with you 100%. The Afrikaner blood in the veins it's what keeps you fighting every single day. And I don't think people understand that that's what kind of blood it is. That's what makes Afrikaners, is that it's that ability to not give up. And it's what makes, to me, I mean, they say make America great again. What makes South Africa so great is that you have so many of these different cultures mishmashed into one. And the comments about being removed from your European ancestors, if you want any further proof of that, find an Afrikaans person and find a Dutch person and watch them talk to each other. They'll understand, but it is 2 different languages at this point. 100%. It's sort of the same.
Look, I mean, with Afrikaans culture, I mean, we've so far removed at the moment. So, because Afrikaans people are actually made up of so many different cultures in their own right. From Holland, from everywhere, from Germany, France, Britain. Like, it's such a mix mash, and that's why a lot of the Afrikaans people still today do get ancestry visas, right? That they can go live in other countries, because why? Their grandparents are born in the UK, but they're Afrikaans, and it's like it's such a mixed match of people. But we're still proud, and we're still strong, and we're still going, and we're not just 44.
All right, man. Well, I will end this episode on that high note, and we will definitely be back again soon with a little bit more of an organization. We'll find a topic, and we'll rip into each topic week by week. So definitely follow along if you like what you hear. But do you have any last words, Mr. Visser?
No, well, I don't really have last words, but I just want to wish everybody that's coming on this journey with us, I wish you all a fantastic day. And I'm thankful for everybody's input and everybody's, assistance, I guess, by their subscriptions and just their comments, keeping us alive. And, that's the type of stuff that we do this for, right? We do it for the people. We do it for those that
100%, man.
that feel like they
100%.
maybe in the same shoes as us, or maybe they want to learn something new, whatever it may be, whatever might bring them to our channel. We're proud to have you. We're thankful to have you, and we're looking forward to have you join us on this epic journey, I would call it, between myself and my friend over here in the US of A, Keith. I don't know. Do you have any last words?
Nah, man. Buy a donkey, guys. Be safe.
Hundreds.
Cheers, man.
Ciao.